the defending champion, the all-new Yamaha YZ450F.
What's up guys, Trevor Hunter here with Dirt Bike Tests, and we're here at the 24 Hours of Glen Helen. As you can see, we have our 2023 YZ450FX all built up and ready to tackle the probably one of if not the longest races here in North America. So today I'm kind of going to go over what we've done to this bike and kind of why we did it as well. Kind of the beauty of this Yamaha in particular is, as we found in testing and kind of in our shootout and stuff, is keeping it stock is almost better than kind of modifying it and going crazy in that way. A lot of the stock components on this bike work really good. A lot of it even better than a lot of aftermarket parts. So as you'll see as we go through this build, you'll see a lot of stock parts, and that's for a reason, because it works, plain and simple. So we'll start with the motor. The motor is completely stock other than the clutch. The Yamaha makes tons of power, so there's really no need to kind of modify the engine a whole lot. And with that Yamaha, the power tuning app, which is free for all users, you can really make this motor into just about anything you want. You can make it a rever, you can make it so it lugs low gears or tall gears, kind of in between. You can make this motor almost whatever you want, and I'll flash some maps here so you can see what we're running in this race and what we typically run. But yeah, motor wise we're completely stock, other than we put a Recluse torque drive clutch in, and kind of what we felt with that is it smoothened the pull with the lever a little bit and it delivered the power just a little bit smoother and cleaner. Not that the stock clutch was bad by any means, but it just maybe helped 5%, 10% putting this Recluse torque drive clutch in. And so far we've had pretty good durability with it as well. We're going to put it through this 24-hour and see how it holds up to that. But so far so good on the durability side. We say it's just as good, if not better, than the OEM clutch for durability wise. Moving on to suspension. We've worked a lot with this bike over the last 2 to 3 years, and Todd at TCS Suspension, he's got this thing working really, really good. In our modified shootout, this bike, from riders that were 150 pounds and kind of off-road intermediate level riders to full-on pros to older 50 plus 220 pound guys, just putting the right spring rate in. Not that one single click was touched with this suspension, from motocross to off-road and kind of everything in between. So we've made really good progress with the suspension on this bike. Obviously it's got the KYB spring forks and just a coil spring shock, so nothing new here, kind of just all reliable in a way. And yeah, it works really good. Todd did a really good job with that, and so far all of our riders and some pre-race testing and kind of just our testing in general over the last year have been really happy with this setup. So yeah, we're ready to tackle the 24-hour with that. Moving on to chassis, again, like I said before, it's really, really stock. We're running stock triple clamps, stock motor mounts. Really, there's really no aftermarket chassis parts to kind of change the handling characteristic. This bike works really, really good. We've tried some triple clamps, some aftermarket triple clamps here and there, but none have felt as kind of smooth and plush as the stock clamps. So we've kept it with that, and we really don't feel the need for any motor mounts or anything like that. This chassis is so smooth and forgiving and stable at high speeds, but it still turns good enough that you know, for a race like this or a lot of the off-road racing we do here on the West Coast, this chassis is almost as good as it gets. There's really nothing that any of our riders have complained about leading up to this race, and we think it'll be the same once the race is over. In keeping with the stock motor theme, to much surprise of many people that look at this bike, we're even running a stock exhaust. We feel that stock exhaust works really, really good, has really good bottom end power. Maybe it doesn't rev out quite as good as like if we had a pro circuit or FMF, but a lot of our riders don't really want to rev the bike a whole lot, and riding those taller gears and lugging it helps us save the motor for kind of the long endurance races that we're doing. So yeah, the stock exhaust, really no need to change that either. It just works really good on this bike. Gearing for this bike is kind of something we do change here. Stock is 1350, and on this bike for this race and a lot of our other West Coast races, we're on a 1452 setup. So we go up on the front and up in the back. And the biggest thing for that was it smoothed out the chassis. If I could describe it in one way, the biggest thing was on under acceleration. And when you're hitting like square edge bumps and acceleration shop, the best way to describe it is with this gearing, it felt like you were accelerating across the top of the bumps, whereas with the 1350, it felt like you were kind of accelerating through the bumps. So just kind of helped bring that, or smoothen out that chassis just a little bit. Kind of that was the biggest reason for going with the 1452 gearing. And on top of that, it kind of smoothened out the power even more and kind of made it a little more broader. So it's harder to run, like we don't really have 2 gears for every scenario like we might with the 1350 gearing. But we seem to always have the right gear at the right time, whether it's second, third, fourth, whatever. And yeah, just smoothing out that power. Kind of we're not revving the bike quite as much anymore either on the top speed. And yeah, just overall just made it a little easier to ride, which is with the power and the chassis. So that was a big goal with this bike. As you can see here, we're running a pretty good light setup here on the front of the bike, thanks to Baja Designs. So we've been doing a lot of testing, and in years past we've run an XL Pro and an XL Sport combo, which is a pretty good setup. And we run the WR450F stator and flywheel on this bike to get a little extra power to power these lights. And so it's a super easy setup. Just go Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Go to OEM Parts, the WR Parts Fish. You can get the OEM stator and flywheel. It bolts right on, super simple. Even a novice mechanic like myself can figure it out. And it gives us about 40 to 50 extra watts of power to play with for lighting. And so this year Baja Designs helped us out, and we were running an XL80 and an XL Pro combo. So that's about 120 watts of light to power. So obviously that's more than what we can power. We're running half off an external battery and then half off the bike. And some of the testing we did, we thought we would be able to run the XL80 straight off the bike, but it draws just a little too much power to be able to do that safely. If you were racing down like Baja or something like that where it's super fast, you rev it out a little bit more, we might be able to pull it off. But for here at Glen Helen, we didn't feel super safe trying to run the XL80 off the bike. It was just losing voltage and losing power a little bit too quick. And so we didn't want to take the chance. So we're running the XL Pro off the bike. No issues there. And then the XL80 will be off an external battery that the riders will carry. It's a pretty good setup, and two is that you're having 2 different power sources. If one fails, you always have another source as a backup. So if something happens to one of the batteries or whatever, you still have another light powered that can get you back to the pits or whatever you may need. And to hold the Baja Designs lights, Modified Machine Works, they just came out with a new cage. We've been running their light cage for a while now, but we took a good crash the last night race we did and kind of bent it up a little bit. It's still good working order, but Modified Machine Works, they kind of redid the cage to kind of tighten it up a little bit, and that's pretty cool design. Super simple, plug and play. Just uses the standard fork tube mounts. It's super clean work. They do really good machine work, and as you can see, it's really built out well. And yeah, we've done a lot of night racing with these lights in the past, and no issues there. They really have a really clean setup that anyone can just buy and bolt on and be confident that they're ready to race. Another Modified Machine Works part that we're using is their dry brake receiver. They just came out with this kind of earlier this year that we've been helping develop and test. And what's cool about this is it has a vent built into the receiver itself. So there's no more having to drill a hole in the tank. You don't have to guess on where you should drill it or worry about drilling it wrong. The vent's built into the receiver, which is super clean, Sano design. The dry brake works really well as well. I know there was a couple minor issues in the initial testing, but we've helped kind of develop that, and they made some key changes that really help kind of the fluid action of the receiver kind of going down and coming back up without getting stuck or kind of binding at all. So this new receiver, really cool design, really trick part, and it makes life simple when you have new tanks, just not having to worry about drilling that vent hole. And speaking of gas tanks, we're running the IMS 2.8 gallon tank. So we feel confident we can go an hour 15, maybe hour and a half on a tank of gas out here, just depending on how fast the course is. But that extra fuel capacity really helps kind of lengthen out our pit stops, and yeah, just makes us so we can run a little bit longer, don't have to worry about fuel, and it gives us the ability to run that dry brake receiver, which is really important when you're pitting up to 24 times in the course of the race. Guts Racing, we're running a Guts Racing tall seat on this bike. The stock Yamaha cockpit is pretty cramped, especially for a lot of our riders. Even for myself, I'm shorter, kind of 5'7" range, and I like the tall seat as well. Kind of just flattens out that seating area, makes it easier to move back and forth, and the transition from sitting to standing isn't quite as abrasive as well. So that Guts Racing, their tall seat, my opinion, the Guts seats are some of, if not the best seats out there. Just their foam and their seat cover, their material, everything it fits really well. It's super comfortable. The materials of the seat cover itself is really grippy, but not too abrasive where you're chafing or have to worry about any of that. It's just everything about the Guts seats I really, really like, and that's a no-brainer putting it on this bike. To finish off the cockpit, we're running a Renthal 7/8 handlebar, actually. Not super common these days, but we really like the feel of these 7/8 handlebars, and it is the CR Mid or 790 bend handlebar. It's pretty tough bend to find, actually. It used to come stock on the kind of 05, 06 Yamahas, which is kind of where I discovered him and really came to like this handlebar. And yeah, it can be a little tough to find at times, but they're super comfortable with the sweep and the height and everything. It's very neutral, and just about any rider of any size can jump on and feel kind of within at home with this handlebar setup. We're running AME half-waffle grips in the white colorway. They're just super comfortable, very forgiving on the hands, and in a race like this where we're riding upwards of 6 hours in the span of 24 hours, having comfortable grips goes a long way in saving your hands and keeping you ready to go out riding again. We're running a Works Connection Pro clutch perch with the lever, kind of the quick adjust wheel, and the rotating bar clamp. The Works Connection clutch perch gives us a little bit smoother pull, kind of go with that Recluse torque drive clutch. Just smooths out the pull a little bit. The lever has a really nice shape to it, and yeah, just a really clean quality part as well. That we can adjust the clutch as the race goes on. The clutch starts fading a little bit. We can adjust it super easy. The Works Connection clutch perch, one of the go-tos on all my cable clutch bikes. We're running the stock front brake lever. That gives us the best power. The shape of the lever and everything feels really good, so we're really happy with the stock front brake lever. At Cherubies USA, they sent us all this plastic. As you see, we went with the retro kind of white, purple, pink theme that the new Yamahas are kind of coming out with. So we jumped on that bandwagon, and we think it's a really good look. So Cherubies sent us a full plastic kit, their handguards and everything, and super clean fit as always. Ride Custom Graphics, they killed it on this graphics theme. We kind of went with the retro 1990s Yamaha theme that Yamaha unveiled in the 2024 motocross model. So we kind of piggybacked on that, and I think it's one of the best looking bikes in the pits myself. TM Design Works, they sent us their chain guide and slider. Our stock components were getting a little worn after 35 hours or so on this bike. And so their chain guide and slider, we've put hundreds of hours on their product and have no issues. So that was an easy choice to put those on. Bulletproof Designs, they sent us a swing arm guard to help protect that chain guide tab from getting torn off, rocks or logs or anything like that. I guess just bolts on, super simple, adds a lot of strength, and kind of one less thing we have to worry about when we're out riding and racing as hard as we can for 24 straight hours. Bulletproof Designs also sent us their rear disc guard. They're some of the best rear disc guards we've ran. We've never had any fitment issues. The pads wear evenly, there's no binding, there's no nonsense like that. They just bolt on really clean. The good machine work, we never had any failures or any problems, and yeah, we're super happy with that product, and we continue to run it for a reason. The EDC sprockets, they sent us their front and rear sprockets. We've put, Jimmy and myself have put hundreds of hours on these rear sprockets, and we're struggling to wear them out. We just transfer them from bike to bike, to wheel, and they just keep going. Keep looking really strong. Yeah, they don't wear the chain out super quick. They last a long time. They're pretty light for a steel sprocket, so that was an easy bolt-on for these. For our tires, we're running a Dunlop combo. We're on the MX53 front tire and an MX33 rear. We expect, as in years past, we've always been able to go the entire race on one front tire, so we expect more of the same this year. The MX33, we expect anywhere from 8 to 12 hours of life out of these tires, depending on how kind of hard pack and how much pavement we have. But we expect good life out of these rear tires as well. And the front and rear tires are both filled with nitro mousses. Kind of like the Dunlop front tire, we expect we should be able to go the entire race on the one front nitro mousse with no fade or kind of getting too soft or anything like that. The nitro mousses last a long time, and they have a good feel for them as well. So avoiding pinch flats like that is super critical in a race like this when we're going for the win, and being able to trust it in the front wheel is really big as we're trying to save one front tire for the whole race. For rear brake pads, this race is notoriously hard on rear brakes. A lot of teams will have to change pads at some point through the race, maybe even twice. But we're running the EBC centered metal rear brake pads, and they'd be a little touchy, especially as they kind of break in and if you glaze them at all. But overall, they last a really long time. We've gone almost every year, we'll run these rear brake pads and be able to go the whole race on one set. And so we run that for kind of durability reasons. The performance isn't quite as good as stock, but not have to worry about changing them or kind of fading them at all. Goes a long way in the race like this. So we're in the EBC centered metal rear brake pads, OEM front. We don't really wear out front brake pads a whole lot. At least not super quick out in these races. So going the OEM front brake pads is pretty easy. They work really good. They last long enough that that's not an issue. And a couple more basic setup tips. We're running our fork height at 5 millimeters. That's stock. That comes stock on these bikes. And over the last couple of years, we felt really comfortable with just that 5 mil fork height. This bike is stable enough. We don't really feel the need to drop down any further to flush or 2 millimeters. That 5 millimeter fork height works really good, and a good mix of stability and good cornering as well. So the 5 mil fork height is good. And then TCS, they actually shorten the shock shaft 3 millimeters internally. So with that, we run 100 millimeters of sag. Before we did the shorten the shock shaft, we were running right around 108 millimeters of sag, which is quite a bit. So by shortening that shock shaft a little bit, we can run less sag at 100 millimeters and still get the same ride height. It kind of changes the handling characteristics a little bit, and we preferred kind of that less sag, but the kind of the lower ride height as well with the shortened shock shaft. So 5 mil fork height, 100 millimeters of sag with a 3 millimeter shortened shock, and this bike works really, really good. So overall, that's it. I mean, this bike is really, bare bones, is pretty stock, and compared to a lot of other bikes at this race and a lot of other test bikes, and it just goes to show how good Yamaha's product is and how little modifications are needed to make it go race ready. We raced a similar built bike like this a couple years ago and ended up winning the race. So it proves how capable it is, and we'll be going for the win tomorrow. So if you want, just hit me up at Trevor Hunter 224 on Instagram or trevor@dirtbiketest.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns regarding this race, this bike, or any other testing really, just hit me up there, and I'll do my best to get you the right answers. And until then, we'll see you out in the trail.
If you liked what you saw in this video, come check us out over at dirtbiketest.com on the webs. We have bike tests, product tests, a lot of fresh dirt, and you can even support us by clicking through our links. Hopefully, we'll see you out in the trail.